We had to come all the way to Florida to see you guys. My God. Hi, Karen.
More in Foxborough if you want.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Mike. I guess I'm up, right?
Let's go. First pitch.
All right, first pitch. What's the plan at left tackle?
The plan is to continue to evaluate our roster and see, who's there that we can continue to try to work there. We're going to bring the players in on April 7th. I think that Caden certainly going to get an opportunity there as the roster is currently constructed, and Verdarian's going to be coming back, and he had a little, procedure. So I think the draft's going to be a good option for us. There's a lot of guys in the draft that we like at a lot of different levels, and I'm confident between now and the time that the season starts that we're going to have something that we believe in and a plan that's going to help us.
What's your excitement level getting Stephon Diggs?
Well, Stephon brings an energy to him. I think that it's fun to coach players like that, and guys that have a confidence to them, that understand the game of football, that have been around, that has developed. This isn't like a first round draft pick. Stephon went later in the draft and continued to improve and has done that, has been productive each and every year. But I love his energy. I love our conversation so far, and looking forward to getting him back there and helping him recover from the surgery.
Back to that question that Karen asked about left tackle. What about in the draft, in the early portion of the draft with Will Campbell? I know that you guys have met with him a little bit, and also Membu. What do you think of those two prospects specifically?
Well, I think they're great, young, talented players that have great film. Will's got a lot of snaps at left tackle. Membu's played right, but there's a lot of guys that have played right and left and switched. So, those are two good young players to talk about in that conversation. But there's others throughout the draft as well.
Do you view Will as a tackle prospect?
Yeah, I think you have to. I don't understand how you could watch him play in the SEC, which is the best conference in college football, against guys that are going to get drafted at that position. So I don't think you have to project it. You can just actually watch and say there's the snaps at left tackle, evaluate it, see what you think.
Would you be open to trading back at 4, or are you kind of?
I think we'd be open to everything. I think we'd be open to everything that we felt like could help the football team. I think that's what we have to do. Whether that's stick and pick a player, or if somebody has an offer for us, I think we'd be willing to listen. But there's a lot of options that we have to consider that could help the team.
When we last spoke to you, you mentioned that there's a little bit of uncertainty at the top right now. Do you feel like you have a clear picture of how picks 1 through 3 might go ahead of you?
Nope. Do you have any idea? You tell me. You tell me goes who 1, 2, and 3, and I'll tell you who goes 4.
Mike, you spent time playing both ways, obviously, in the NFL. You were able to do it, but not to the degree that Travis Hunter has done in college. So how difficult is it for him at the NFL level to play both ways, the same volume, the same productivity, or do you have to evaluate him as just a corner, just a wide receiver?
I don't know how anybody could say how hard it would be. We've never seen a player, necessarily do it. I think that there are some things that he can improve on by, probably concentrating on more than just on one position. But never going to put any restrictions on Travis or any player. We try to, as much as they can handle, that we're going to continue to put more on their plate. And so if he were on our football team and he showed a great skill at one position and was starting to really do well in his conditioning, and it didn't fall off and it didn't drop, we would be open to playing everybody that we had at more than one position. Anything that would help the football team, I would be all in favor of.
Does he have to have a primary, though, a primary position?
Well, I think to improve, I think there has to be a primary focus, just to be able to get some of the details that are going to be required at this league. So, we'll see, once everybody's on our football team, where they end up playing or where they end up starting out and practicing.
Mike, there's a report about Diggs that he could be ready for week 1. As far as your evaluation of him, what's a realistic timeline for him to be ready?
Try to stay away from timelines and predictions. I know that he's working hard to get back, which is exciting. I think it's, by all accounts, everything is on schedule, and we feel good about where his rehab is and what he's doing. But I think with any injury, I'm never going to put a timeline on it. I don't think it's fair, one, to the players. What one person's MCL injury may be is not the same as another player's injury, that everybody recovers differently. So as long as they're working hard to get back with every injury, that's all we can ask of them. And, I just don't think it's fair to put a timeline on it.
Mike, Stefan described that visit as a kind of get-to-know-you process. What did you learn about him in the day and a half that you spent together?
All the things that we've talked about before, just his presence, the energy, the knowledge of the game, his ability to talk through things and talk through his rehab and his plan and how he prepares for the game, how he the relationship with the quarterback and all those things that we've worked through over the course of a couple days. And again, it was an easy visit. The conversations were easy. Nothing was forced. And so looking forward to moving with him on our roster.
Like at number 4 overall, will you guys wait and need, or is it just all about taking the best player available?
I just think you have to be careful. Hopefully those two things can come together and align when you're drafting. But we certainly want to add premium players at the top of the draft and throughout the draft. That's our goal.
Mike, you guys like some leaders from last year ago between David Andrews, Jonathan Jones, Dietrich Wise, and Juwan Bentley. What do you envision the leadership in the locker room look like this year?
I think that there's going to be opportunities for everybody at whatever, if they've been in the league 8 or 9 years or they've been in the league 1 or 2 years, there'll be some rookies. There'll be plenty of opportunities for guys to lead and create a new identity for us and his football team moving forward.
Mike, especially with David, considering the scheme going back to McDaniels and he's been in it, why not give him the opportunity to see if he could come back and earn a spot on the team?
We felt like that was best decision for us, and we thank David for his contributions and what he's done, and thought it was best for our football team that we move on, and we're excited about the guys that we got up front. We were able to add Garrett Bradbury, and Cole's worked hard at center the last couple weeks of the season, which he did and played there, and it's pretty impressive considering he hadn't spent much time there.
Will you keep Cole at center? Is that the plan?
I think he'll work on the interior 3, but I think to give him an opportunity to compete at center and build off of what he did at the end of last year.
Mike, how much of the guys that Ben mentioned that you guys decided not to bring back, were those all individual football decisions, or collectively did you feel like you need a culture reset in that locker room?
No, I think those are all individual decisions. I think that something that happens. The captaincy is not a 4-year term. It's not an 8-year term. It's a year-to-year term, and every player has to prove themselves each and every day to the football team. And again, there were some veteran players that have done a lot of great things, and it was just, individual decisions. Some of those other players went and moved on to another football team. Some we had decisions that we made. So that's just all part of the roster construction.
Mike, how important is it to build that core of young players in this draft? 3-4 guys were long-term contributors. Last year, it's kind of an X factor as to how many guys. The previous year, not a lot of guys. You don't have.
It's tough,
Christian
buddy. It
right
catches up with you. You know what I mean? It catches up. If you don't draft well, it catches up with you. You got to chase in free agency, and you got to be perfect. And so, the draft is critical, right? To be able to find players that fit a role, and you develop them, and that you decide to retain them, and build through the draft because you know the person. And the player can really excel in your program and what you believe in. So you got to draft well. If not, it catches up with you.
It can't be one guy a year really either, or 2 guys a year. It has to be. You can't get all 10 or whatever.
No, but you have to have the volume of that draft. Or if you're going to go up for players, you got to be convicted on them because of the capital that it's going to cost you to go up and get them.
Each player that Tush Push, Peyton Conley discussed, what is your view of it? Do you think it should be banned?
Well, what I think we should not do and be careful of is, there's a lot of different plays that you have to defend that the offense does well, and that particular play, you have to defend it. It's also tough to defend Lamar Jackson when he runs the ball. So I'm all in favor of getting rid of those plays that are tough to defend, but we just try to focus on what the rules are and try to use them to our advantage.
Mike, where do things stand with Christian Barmore?
As far as
just his availability.
Well, he's by all accounts, I think, going to participate in the voluntary off-season program. Voluntarily be there. This is my point to see how many times I can say the word voluntarily in a 30-second hit. But I write a letter voluntarily to the players and making sure that they voluntarily read it and voluntarily show up. No. He came in with an injury. He popped in the other day to see the doctors.
Okay.
And I knew Christian from when I saw him at Alabama.
Yeah.
Haven't really had any interaction with him. And when he walked into the training room, all the trainers and just his energy and presence, so I know that he's feeling better. We'll continue to evaluate him. It's something very serious. We take the health of our players extremely serious, especially when you're talking about something like blood clots. And we're going to have a great plan for him. We're going to do right by him, whatever is necessary, however we can get him to help us, based on days of practice, based on everything that he needs. And we don't have that plan yet, but we're continuing to work through it.
Mike, you mentioned Caden Wallace on the first answer, and he was interesting last year because he played mostly right tackle at Penn State. They sort of played him both sides, and then he had the injury.
Yeah, he got hurt.
4.
And I think by all accounts, you try to – offensive linemen really can't play special teams, right? They're not a contributor. You're a tight end, you got a running back, you got a linebacker. Some of these young players, they can get their feet wet. They can develop on special teams, gain the confidence going out and doing those things on special teams. And Caden, they were trying to do that from the XL tight end. And he was doing a nice job. He was playing physical, doing a nice job, and then got injured. And by all accounts, worked extremely hard through that process to one, get back, but also to train while he was out. So looking forward to working with him. And again, we're only going to evaluate what we see going forward. We don't care how you got here. We just care what you do when you're here. So whatever they are coming in there, when we see them, we'll evaluate them, we'll work with them, and we'll try to have a role or a vision for them.
My one follow-up on him, is there any thought to just letting him stay at left just because he had never really played it before?
I mean, that's
Would you
something
do
to
that?
consider. We're going to consider everything once we get everybody in the building and figure out what's best for the player and what's best for the team.
Speaking of tight end, what do you think of Tyler Warren? I say just build the whole offense out of tight ends.
But how many tight ends can we play, right? I
Those
think
guys aren't young that you have.
No, I mean, I think that we would love to add as many good football players or have that play style, and you certainly watch Tyler and his play style and his demeanor, and having met with him at the combine, I think he's a wonderful prospect. And I'm all for playing and acquiring as many tight ends as we can possibly get. So sign me up. Bring me as many good tight ends as you have out there, Tommy, and we'll find him something to do.
With Juwan Bentley, what went into the decision to release him?
These are difficult decisions, Doug, and players that have been here for a while and made great contributions to the football team before I was here. And so that I know that the Kraft family and the organization appreciate everything that they did. But these are decisions that we don't take lightly, and these are tough personnel decisions that we have to make. Once we come to that conclusion, we'd be as honest and direct to the player that we can and thank them. And that's what we did with Juwan.
Talking about Caden, Layden Robinson last year sort of started at right, finished at left guard. Where do you view him? Will you stick him at one spot to start this offseason?
Yeah, I do think for some of these interior offensive linemen, it's critical that there is a level of versatility, that they can play multiple sides. It's just tough to be so specialized, and we'll give an opportunity to compete. But I do think for some of the interior players, and again, you're going to have to evaluate who the swing tackle is, and some of those guys during the game that can cross train and be at a left side and a right side, and so Layden was able to get some quality snaps last year, had some good snaps on tape, had some snaps that he'd like to have back that he can improve on. But there has to be some versatility inside once you start getting to the games.
Mike, I know you mentioned kind of half joking, give me as many tight ends as you get. April 7th is coming up, and you give to implement the new offense with Josh. Do you have a better vision of what that offense will look like, given the additions you've had in free agency and the roster's mostly put together?
I mean, I think we're so far from game planning right now. I think we're just putting the base stuff and putting what we believe in as far as the way that we want to play, the style, the things that I believe in, playing with the technique and all the details to the play. So we're not going to overload guys. We've got time. We really want to make sure that we're starting this thing off the right way and don't assume that they know anything about our system or our style. But it'll always be multiple, just like it was. I mean, there's going to be, opportunities for, two backs in the backfield, for multiple tight ends on the field, having with 3 wide receivers and, talk about the run game. I think, being able to have some multiplicity and not just get married to one particular style, I think is important. But we always want to be able to create some conflict with the defense and have multiple ways to do that, whether that's going on the ball, whether that's being able to shift in motion. And again, once we see what our players can handle, I think that's the level to which we take the offense, and how quickly we do it is on them.
Mike, is the plan to go with Spillane at Mike linebacker, sort of like a green dot guy, and what do you like about him in that role, if that's what it is?
Well, a lot of production. I love the person, love what he's about, but a lot of production. A lot in the last couple of years. I think his ability to get his hands on the football and passing game, something that we valued. His ability to play 3 downs. He did that for Vegas, is something that is critical. And we haven't passed out the helmets with the headgear, head system, coach the quarterback yet. So I don't know where that's going to fall, but I would imagine that he'd be one of the players that we would consider to be able to do that.
This might be kind of a dumb question, but going back to the offense.
Like the rest of these questions.
The Patriots have never had a passing game coordinator, so I'm just kind of curious how the logistics of that work. Does Thomas kind of draw pass plays, bring them to Josh, or how do you envision that working between the two of them?
That system has been pretty fluid here with Thomas and Todd Downing and Josh. Those guys have worked together well with Ashton Grant. It's good to have some outside eyes on the system and the scheme, and as Josh's offense has kind of evolved, it kind of gets added on at the bottom. And I think what Thomas can do with Todd is kind of look and get things cleaned up and put it in more of a bucket, and being able to be a coach that's learning it, how they would be able to teach it, right? I think that's something that we always want to look at, is how will we teach this to the players? What's the best way to get this across to the players? Having fresh set of eyes with Thomas and Todd and Ashton or Tony Dews allows them to say, hey, Josh, let's clean up this, or this is how we did it with the Rams, or this is how we did it with the Jets, or this is how we did it with other places. And then they go through this process, and we sit in there and we look, and we can call this we call this family here. We got all our in breakers, we got all our 3-man concepts, or whatever it may be. It's allowed, I think, for it to get cleaned up a little bit, and just having those communications where maybe it was Josh took it for granted. These new coaches are like, I think they can hit the player's brain a little better this way, or here's how I would like to coach it, and they've been able to clean it up.
Mike, how's the meshing gone so far between your coaching group and the people that you're familiar with, and Elliot Wolf and the vision for a player? Say you have Diggs in, everybody talks to him, and then he leaves. How does the conversation go afterwards? One guy says, I like him. One guy says, I can't stand him. How does it flesh out?
I mean, those are all conversations about all the players. I don't know if it's necessarily that. It's no. I mean, we're constantly talking about what we feel like is best for the team. And I think when you go through it's more so during the college evaluation that there's the coaching report and what the personnel side would be, the evaluation. And I love having been a head coach that I can see when these things, one group's going to have the guy here, the other one, and I'm like, oh, we're heading towards that. Well, he doesn't do this, or there was a player in last year's draft that was like a really good pass protector, but he really didn't do much in the run game. And I'm thinking to myself, we're heading for one of these. The scouts love this guy and the coaches can't stand him. And sure enough, in Cleveland, it happened sitting through the personnel meeting. So those are going to happen. We didn't take that player. The Browns didn't take the player, so it didn't matter. But it was just continually to have a vision. I think for the coaches, the best thing is to have a vision. Like, this is what this player is going to do for us. This is how we're going to use them. And then the personnel side says, okay, here are the traits. Here's the skill set. This is what the measurables are. And you always want to try to combine that. And so it's my job, I think, to coordinate both sides of it.
What sucks is that can set itself up for a told you so. Say the guy turns into a lab.
Well, we never want to do that, but I think that's human nature. We want to try to eliminate those things from our program. The I told you so is like, you can put it on me. I'm a big boy. Trust me. We're going to have a lot of things that go well, which will be due to the players and the assistant coaches, and they'll have some things that won't go so well, and you can put those on me. I can handle it.
Mike, during your introductory press conference, you said among your goals was to win the AFC East.
We want to win the division.
You want to host playoff games.
We absolutely do.
Based on what you've done so far, do you feel you're closer?
We're winning. We won March. Amazing. Which is something that's comical, right? We're never just trying to win March. We want to just try to be ready when the season goes, and it's a long process. Don't interrupt me, Karen. I'm still talking. What's the question?
Are you happy with?
I'm never happy. Sometimes. Am I happy with? Yes, I think that what we've done has been exciting. It's been fun to come to work. There's an energy in the building, which I am proud of. That when I hear that from people around the building that maybe have been there, that makes me happy. That everybody is excited and there's an energy about coming to work and ultimately trying to help the players.
Based on your evaluations and conversations about last year's roster, what was your impression of what went wrong with Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, and how does that inform your approach moving forward?
Yeah, I didn't do a whole lot of investigating about what went wrong. I'm trying to focus on what's going to go right. And so I know that Jalen's working hard. He's excited about being a new dad. He's working hard to rehab that shoulder. Focusing on, and again, he said this, not me, but this is something I'll always say, is he's focused on what he can do as opposed to what he can't do. So he's lifting hard. He's lifting his lower body hard. He wants to get stronger, and where he can make gains right now about strength is in his lower body because he's rehabbing his shoulder. So that's exciting to me. Javon have been communicating with, and again, I'm excited to get these guys back whenever they come back and get going. Like, we're going to evaluate them going forward, not anything that happened. And if there's things that we can try to, eliminate from last year, we've had those conversations, and whatever their frustrations were or whatever things that did or didn't happen, we're moving forward with what we see in them and the excitement that they have. And so the more excited they are about learning, we'll be just as excited about teaching them.
Mike, on the young receivers you just talked about, and also the offense, right, with Josh, you know that offense, you saw it for years with Tom. It's been difficult for young receivers, to be able to pick it up with the sight adjustments and some of the other stuff. So how close is this offense that Josh is going to run going to be to what he ran when Brady was there, or will you make changes to make
There
it easier to pick it up?
There'll be changes. There has to be changes, right? You know, there has to be. We have to start somewhere, and you know, to say that Drake is going to be, you know, similar to somebody else in his system after 5 or 6 years, I don't think that that's fair to say. So, you know, we're going to start with a foundation, and those are the most important things, and building and making sure that the receivers. We're not just going to go past something because it says it on the schedule. Like if it takes us an extra day, then it takes us an extra day. If it takes us an extra week to get the first couple installs in, then that's what it's going to take. Like we're not just going to gloss over things. We believe strongly in teaching and helping those players and figuring out how they learn best and making sure that we're doing everything we can to give them a chance to help themselves.
Mike, Joe Milton, just curious your thoughts on him, and if there's any sense from conversations with other teams that you might have an asset there that could have value to, you know, in any potential discussions with other teams.
Yeah, I think Joe's did everything that they asked him to do last year. It sounds like in conversations that he worked extremely hard. And that's tough when you're a quarterback. Everybody wants to play. Everybody wants to be the starter. Everybody, and that's great to have that attitude. And he was ready for his opportunity there late in the season, which I commend him on, just like I would any player that sat there and went through a long season, a difficult season, and then got the opportunity, went out, won a football game, played well, helped his team win, and then, you know, where that leads to, we'll see as the draft approaches, or you know, where Joe is on April 7th to start our offseason program. But, you know, you have to give Joe credit for being ready to go, going from the third quarterback to being able to win that football game and stay ready and stay hungry.
How about that game? Your life would be easier for you right now had they lost. Are you happy that they won, given that as a coach, as a player? As
I mean, it's a difficult season, and, you know, that you want to compete and fight, that those players out there were doing everything that they could to win a football game. And I think that's the mentality, that's the environment that you want to create. So to say that there's any other reason, I think that's not what you want to create. And somebody has the first pick, somebody's going to have the second or the third. But, you know, those players, man, that's put yourself in their position like that, to get that opportunity to go out there and play and to compete and put tape out there like that. That's important. That's important for their career. That's important to instill that in a football team. And, you know, I don't think you could have it any other way. So I'm proud of all those guys that did that, and they fought and they won a football game.
Mike, you guys matched the offer sheet on Christian Ellis. Why was that important for you guys to do?
Well, and this was a difficult decision. It was one that we, you know, ultimately decided that a young ascending player that has a skill set and speed, and, you know, feel like he can do a lot of different things for us, and that his arrow was up, and that we felt like we wanted to keep him on the roster. So in order to do that, we had to match the offer sheet. And, you know, Christian is excited by all accounts to be back. We're excited to have him. You know, this is a player, the more he played, I think the better that he got. Was very good on third down and fourth down. And then first and second down, the more he played, the better he got on first and second down.
Mike, joint practices this summer, anything set in stone there?
Still waiting for the NFL, but have had conversations with Minnesota. Washington, I think, would like to come up. We'd love to go to Minnesota if the NFL, you know, gives us those opportunities.
What draws you to Minnesota?
Cheese curds. We practiced with them a few years ago in Tennessee. It's a nice setup. They got a beautiful facility. There's a hotel close by. You can walk to the field. You know, it's just have enjoyed working with Kevin and B-Flow on their team.
Like, what are the most important things you have to do leading up to the draft for you personally, the next 4 weeks or so?
Just have enough exposure with those players in the first few rounds that we see, you know, the top 100 and 150 players that, I got to have enough exposure, and our scouting department has done a fantastic job. Our personnel department with, Elliot and Ryan and Cam Williams helping us do there, Matt Groh, everybody, getting out and going different places and bringing guys in on 30 visits and making suggestions like, hey, what do you think about this guy coming in? Let's get some more information on this guy. And so I've loved where the process has been. We worked well through the free agency process of being able to have a plan, being able to pivot off of that, move quickly, be decisive. Those were some things that we're really excited about. And I think the balance for me is just making sure that I'm doing everything I can with our current players, but also making sure that I'm staying up on, the guys that we may add to our football team.
Patriots haven't signed a running back yet. Is that an area you like to address in the draft?
I think so. Having a good young runner, something that's potentially something that we would like to do. I thought the guys coming back, I think Ramondre and Gibby, I think obviously we're a good 1-2 punch. People are going to talk about Ramondre and putting the ball on the ground, and he knows that, but we'll help him there, and we'll also, we're going to help make sure the other 10 players know that their job is to protect the guy with the ball as well. There were some opportunities on there for me to teach the other guys that, that second guy in, the guy you don't see is the one that's making the fumble or causing the fumble. And so it's a great opportunity for me to show those other players that their guys, the one coming in there to knock the ball loose. And so is that going to all be on the running back? No. It's going to be on the guy that's letting his guy get in there and make the hit. So those are great opportunities for me. But we'll love to add good young players on offense and skill players.
How was it personally felt coming back here? Is it like you remembered it for you and your family? And isn't that a nice question, Dan?
Yeah, it's exciting. I thought that there'd be some new faces, but unfortunately there's some of the same faces that have been there, like some new ones. But it feels good. It feels good to be back there. I'm excited to come to work, and I'm looking forward to this thing getting going. Can't wait to work with you, Tom. It's going to be great.
It's been fun already.
I wish they had the still that. Make sure you use the styrofoam so I could poke a hole in your coffee cup as you sit there and hold your coffee cup.
Mike, how's it going to work with the 3 offensive line coaches? It's like Kugler going to be, and they're all experienced. It's like Kugler going to be in charge of the younger guys. How is that going to work?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think that's. I was excited about adding the 2 guys that we added and keeping Cougs. And usually that third position is a younger, quality control coach. But, I'm excited about having 3 guys that can, like you said, it's a tough position to develop, right? And so in the spring, if we can have 3 guys that are working with, 4 or 5 players, however many are there, in smaller groups, that can be really beneficial. And having those guys and the trust and, once you get to the season, I want to be very efficient with our time. I don't want coaches. I don't want tired coaches. I don't want exhausted coaches. I want coaches that come in with energy. And so to be able to divvy up some of those responsibilities to work ahead on the pressure, the third down game, making sure that we've got the run game and the diagrams drawn. I think that those guys are going to all be able to do that, and we'll divvy up the responsibilities so that everybody's efficient.
What went into the decisions to let Wise and Jones walk, and what'd you lose with those guys?
Yeah, we've already addressed that, so I apologize, but we've already touched on that.
Rough Felder up for us?
A little bit.
Yeah.
He talked about his high school football career. He said he fumbled in the last game of his season, and it cost his team the game, and they lost to their rival. And I was like, he said he played tight end. And I looked at him and I was like, that's embarrassing.
Explains a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
34 minutes. That'll be the longest we ever go.